What's up gamers, it's AbbyElise here and welcome back to another video on the channel, and today I am going to be teaching you guys how to make thumbnails. Through this tutorial you could basically learn a lot of Photoshop things and also how to use the Custom NPC mod for Minecraft. So you have to make sure that you have both of those things, or else I don't really know what you're doing watching the tutorial, but you know, it's fine. I personally make all of the thumbnails on the videos on my channel and also thumbnails for other people, most notably Aluke. Pretty much all of the thumbnails on Aluke's channel are made by me. And from time to time, I've recently been helping Specular Potato's channel in making thumbnails as well. So on a business standpoint, I realized that this isn't really a good idea. But you know what? Some people might not have the money to go buy their thumbnails, so for those people who would rather make their own thumbnails, I hope this tutorial will help you learn stuff. But yes, you will need NPC Mod. We're going to be using 1.8.9 as the version of Minecraft, but I can't really help that much in the installation of mods. I will link videos in the description on how you can get NPC Mod on Forge and the whole installation process, but I will skip over that for now so we can get straight into the thumbnail making. Alright, so we are in a single player world of the Bed Wars map for Zarzul, and we're going to be making a thumbnail, obviously, for somebody in my Discord server. If you want to know how I got this map, all you really need to do is search YouTube and just type in Hypixel Bed Wars map download. I really recommend this video because there's no adfly links, so when you click on this Google Drive, you can find a lot of different Hypixel maps, Bed Wars maps specifically. And yeah, you can download the maps and drag them into your saves Minecraft folder. But yeah, moving on, I just want to show you guys how to use NPC Mod. So if you have the mod installed, when you hit E, there should be a completely new page full of NPC Mod stuff. But mainly, you only need this NPC wand and maybe the cloner sometimes. But I don't think we will be needing this, although I will show how it works because it could be useful in a lot of situations. So the main thing is the NPC wand. Basically, you just pick somewhere where you'd like a character to stand. For example, if you want a character to stand here, you can right click and boom, there is a little NPC here. What I would suggest is that you hide the name. It doesn't really matter, so just hide it. And the texture could be anything you want. You could put a player name here. So example, if I put my own name, AbbyElise, there you go. It has my skin. Look at that. But right now we are making a thumbnail for this person. This is the IGN that we're going to be using. Unfortunately, 1.8.9 doesn't have Alex skin support, so it kind of just looks odd like that. But that's alright, it doesn't really matter that much. From the display tab, you should go to AI, edit the movement, and make rotation from body to manual. Because we don't want the NPC to be spinning around, we just want it still and looking into a specific direction. So yeah, if you look at here, the rotation could be any angle from 0 to 359. Right now, the rotation is at 0 degrees, but as you can see, if you change it, let's say 180, you could notice that it will turn to that direction. So we can always just play with the value. Let's say we want it to be facing 200. I feel like I want the person to be facing more like here, so I'm just going to keep turning the NPC around until it gets to the angle that I want. Okay, a little bit more. And there you go, perfect. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that the thumbnail we're gonna be making, as requested from the Discord person, is a channel update or like future video. So I have a vague idea on what I'm gonna be doing for this thumbnail, but most of it will come at the Photoshop part. Alright, now that I have the NPC facing where I want, I need to actually give it stuff because, you know, this is Bed Wars, so you should have a full set of armor and probably a weapon, or you could put blocks or something in there. So what I'm gonna do is just take some leather armor, here you go, and then get some bone meal because that's how you dye it white. Get a crafting table so we're able to dye the armor. So yeah, I'm just dyeing the armor right now. Alright. I'm also going to get a iron sword, and I will be putting all of these in the inventory section of the NPC. So as you can see here, it just basically looks like an inventory. It works the same way. Just put these where you want them to be. So yeah, it looks very normal right now. Look at that. So as you can see, the character's arms are actually swaying back and forth. And personally, I don't really like that, especially when just trying to make a still pose for the character. So just set has a living animation to no, and that will keep the arms still. Alright, the last step is posing the NPC, and you can do that with the advanced tab. Make the job from no job to puppet, which is 3 back arrow clicks from no job. So if you start at no job, click this arrow 3 times, boom, you're at puppet. So as you can see, you could edit this, and it's basically what the name suggests. It's literally a puppet. You could pose it any way you like. So what I'm going to do is make the head point upwards a little bit and turn it a little bit this way. I don't usually move the body area, but you could like tilt it a little bit. I don't really know what you would use this for though, unless you want them to appear sneaking or something like that. I want to make it look like this person is swinging the sword. So how you can do that is basically make the person raise his hand. And what I'm gonna do is like this little swinging action. So I'm gonna make the sword go inward and then tilt it a little bit on this axis too. So it makes a pretty cool looking effect. And then I am going to take the left arm and make it fall back like this. Then the left leg, I am going to bring it forward. The right leg, bring it backward. And boom, you have something like this, which doesn't look that bad. Except for that black texture on the arm, which is not really fixable at this moment in time, which is unfortunate. But yeah, once you're happy with how the NPC is posed, you can try taking a screenshot. What I usually do is make my FOV kinda low, around like 30 to 50. It honestly just depends. Let's go to a 45 for now. And then I usually like going to spectator mode because it helps you phase through blocks and stuff so you can get more dynamic angles. Make sure you're in F1 mode and just try to position your camera in a nice way and what you're satisfied with. I personally think this looks the best because I'm going to put some stuff on the right portion in Photoshop. So yeah, I'm going to take a screenshot, do F2 on your keyboard, that takes a screenshot. As you can see in the chat, if I remove my F1, we save the screenshot. So you can go to your screenshot folder and it will be there. Let's move on to Photoshop. Wait, let me quickly show you how this Mob Cloner tool works before we move on. So the reason why I say it's useful is because you can right click on an NPC and name it whatever you want and just save it to any sort of tab that you want. I don't know how many tabs there are. Oh, there's 9. Let's just save it in the 9th tab because I have a lot of random things in the other tabs. And just make sure it's on client side, or I don't really know the difference. If you're on single player, it doesn't really matter. It could be either client or server side. And just click save. So you're probably wondering, what does that do? Well, just like the name suggests, you can now click somewhere, example right here, and go to tab 9 and you can see that here is the clone thing that I just saved recently. You can spawn it and boom, the exact same thing spawns looking in the exact same direction. So this is really useful. For example, I have a template thing right here that basically has everything set up. All you need to do is just apply a skin like AbbyElise, there you go. And you can change the movement of anything. So it saves a lot of time if you just use the Mob Cloner so you don't have to make everything from scratch again whenever you make another thumbnail. So yeah, that's basically the Mob Cloner. Alright, let's continue the tutorial. As you can tell from my screenshot folder, I make a lot of thumbnails. Like you can see this one was for Glimpse. Here are some screenshots I took for a Luke as well. But anyways, you could see that this is the screenshot that we recently took. I am going to drag that into Photoshop. This is a 1280 by 720 canvas size. That's like the recommended dimension for YouTube. So yeah, make sure that your thumbnails are 1280 by 720. Make sure you have show transform controls checked up here on your move tool. The shortcut to your move tool, by the way, is V. I won't be explaining a lot of the tools for this tutorial because I've already done a lot of explaining in my previous thumbnail tutorial. You could check that out also in the description or probably in an iCard somewhere. But yes, have show transform controls on, and you can click on like the guides for the transform controls, and you can size the image up. Make sure you're holding shift while doing it though, or else the proportions will just be whack. But yeah, I want to size it up a little bit, take in more of the space. It's really important that you make use of all of the space that you have. Then it's also really nice to tilt your screenshots a little bit because I don't know, it just makes it look nicer in my opinion. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to tilt it a little bit, give it a little bit of an angle, and once you're satisfied with the position of your screenshot, you can just hit enter and boom. So what we're going to do now is basically the same thing that I did in my other thumbnail tutorial, which is we're going to take this tool, like the polygonal lasso tool or however you say it, and then we just select the character. The thing about this lasso tool is that you can just connect points, so you can click once and then click again, and then boom, it has like a line. So it's really good for Minecraft characters because all they are just edges. So it's pretty easy to select things with the polygonal lasso tool when it comes to Minecraft. So yeah, we just want to go around this NPC and select it. Also, don't worry if you mess up somewhere. Just finish what you can, and you can always edit the selection afterwards. And I could show you what that means in a bit after I finish this. Also, you don't need to be super precise because the thumbnail is very small anyways when you see it on YouTube. So it's very hard to notice mistakes if they are on a very small level. Also, if you're wondering how to like move the screen while you're selecting, I don't really know how to move the screen. I just drag across the screen and it just automatically follows the lasso tool, so that's what I do. Alright, we are done selecting, and as you can see, it makes a selection. What I was saying a while ago is that you can edit your selection still if you messed up. For example, if you hold shift, you could see that there's like a plus sign. So that means you can add whatever you want to the selection. As you can see, I made an extra selection and it added that, but I'm obviously not gonna do that. You can also hold Alt, and that will subtract from your selection, which I don't want to do either. You can always edit your selection if you see things that don't look quite right. But yes, when you finalize your selection, what you want to do is hit Ctrl J on your keyboard, and that will duplicate the character onto a new layer. And you can do a lot of stuff with this. For example, you can right click on the layer, hit blending options, and then you have a lot of things to play with. What I usually do is add a gradient overlay and play with the opacity a bit. Usually I pick an opacity from 50 to like 70 or something like that. Just make sure it's not super harsh. You can also play around with blending modes, but I just know that overlay works the best. And the gradient that I use is this black to white gradient. And then next, we should add a inner glow. The color of the inner glow is white, and I usually use color dodge or overlay. If you want the inner glow to be less harsh, I would definitely go with overlay, and you can always play with the opacity. I would keep it at around 75 or maybe even lower. It always depends on what you think looks nice. And you can also play around with the size a bit. I'm going to set it to around 29 or 30 actually for this thumbnail. And that's all I really do lately for thumbnails. Sometimes if you feel like it, you can always add like this inner shadow that has a color of white and just mess with the settings a bit. But then for this one, I am not going to add that. You can click OK and boom, we have the effects on there. Now what you want to do is blur the background so that the character pops out a bit more. You can either Gaussian blur, which kind of just looks like this, and yeah, this looks nice, but I will also show you other ways to blur. For example, radial blur, it gives this nice wacky spinny thing. Yeah, it just spins everything around. Or another type of radial blur is actually the zoom. You can also change the center point of where it's zooming in or spinning. So example, if I change the center point to here, which is around where the character is, you kind of just have to estimate where the things are because they don't really give you a proper preview. But yeah, for zoom, I usually pick a number between 6 to 8. Let's just do 6 for this example. And then boom, it does like a little zoom in radial blur, which also looks nice. I think I'm gonna go with this one. But then for another example, we can have a motion blur, which basically is a linear directional blur. But we're not going to use this. We are going to be sticking with the radial blur that is zooming. And we can also combine this with a little Gaussian blur just to add a little bit more blur in the background. Alright, now that we're done with that, what I want to add, since this thumbnail is for like the channel's future, I kind of want to add a clip art thing of a clock over here. So that's what I'm gonna add first. Alright, so I found this clock image that looks pretty nice, so I'm going to paste it into Photoshop and just use the magic wand tool to get rid of the outsides. And I don't really know how to explain this well, but the magic wand tool is pretty useful because it just can select things of like similar color easily. Like example, if I were to select this white area, it will do that perfectly, depending on the tolerance, of course. Like example, if you set the tolerance to 1, it will only select that small portion, but if you set it to 100, the sensitivity will be more harsh. See, it will just select a lot of stuff. So yeah, just keep it in the medium area. And you also have to be on the layer that you want to magic wand. So example, I'm on this layer right now. I need to go to layer 2 in order to select this outer portion of the circle, hit delete, and boom, it's now gone. What I'm gonna do is use the move tool and position this wherever I want. I might put this layer behind layer 1 so that it's behind the character. And a cool thing that you can actually do is right click and hit distort. This is honestly a really cool thing that gives your thumbnail a lot more perspective, I guess. Like, you can just play around with the distortment and have some really cool looking perspectives with this. But yeah, if you're done adding whatever image that you want to add into your thumbnail and adjusting it, just always remember to hit enter after that so it will complete the transformation. I'm gonna right click on the clock and add some blending options to it so that it pops out more. For example, I want to add a drop shadow, change the angle to around here and make the size bigger, change the distance a little bit. It's kind of hard to explain what I'm really doing, but I'm just giving it some sort of shadow so it like pops out from the background a bit more, and maybe even a stroke, but I'm not really sure. Sometimes you could add a stroke. It just gives a bit more pop to it and makes it stand out a little bit more. So now I'm gonna make a text. Just hit T on your keyboard for the text tool. Click somewhere and type your text in. So for this one, I want to say future in all caps. Can't really see it because of the clock. You know what? I'm just gonna hide it for now because can't really see the text this way. And this text, you could change it to whatever you want. like the font and everything. A lot of good thumbnail fonts include, example, Arial. Usually I like using bold italic because it looks really clean. You could also use Burbank. Burbank has like a lot of different variations. Like you have the big condensed, you have big regular as well. You can use Riffic, which also looks really nice. You can use Equestrian. Most of these are downloaded fonts from the internet, by the way. If you don't really know how to install fonts, I will also link a guide to installing fonts. More nice fonts for thumbnails. There's Cartoonist. There's also Luckiest Guy, which is the font that Turtles usually uses for his thumbnails. There's also Supersonic Rocket, I think that's what it's called. Oh, Supersonic Rocket Ship. But you know what? For this thumbnail, I am going to be using this font, Burbank Condensed. Okay, I'm going to put the clock back even though you really can't see the text when it's there, but okay, that's going to change soon because I am going to put some blending options on this thing. I think we're gonna stick with white text just so everything looks uniform here. And we're going to add a stroke. I think around 10 looks fine to me. It actually would be cool if we changed the color of the stroke to match the clock, but then I might make it still a little bit darker. It just matches the color code and stuff. And we can add a drop shadow. I'm gonna put the spread up a little bit so that the shadow spreads in more. We're going for a pretty simple text. Sometimes simple is good. Like you don't want to be super over the top, but if you want to learn more advanced text styles, you can go to my other thumbnail tutorial. Again, I'm gonna link it somewhere. You're probably gonna see it. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this. You can also add something called bevel and emboss, but I don't really know how to play with this that well. Like, I don't really know how to do this that nicely, but like if you know how to play around with this, like just play around with the opacity and everything, like you might be able to make something that looks pretty good. Something like that maybe. But yeah, something like this. It looks pretty nice, I'd say. So yeah, I'm just gonna hit OK and boom, we have the text there. We can move the text to wherever we want. We can even give it an angle. You can even warp it and make an arc so like it bends, which looks pretty nice. I think I'm gonna make an arc like this. It looks pretty good. Maybe not too harshly though, just like that. And hit enter when you're done with the transformation, and I could just place the text somewhere like that. So as you can see, this is a pretty nice looking thumbnail so far. I might center this a little better. There you go. I think that looks better. But something that you could do to make your thumbnail pop even more is adjustments. As you can see here, I don't really know if you guys see the same thing on your Photoshop, but I have adjustments here, and the adjustments that I mainly use for thumbnails is vibrance. If you don't see these, they might be available over here in this place. But yeah, I add vibrance and just add more saturation so that it just, you know, looks more lively. I don't really go over 20 that much, so I just keep it below 20. Let's just go with 18. You can also add more vibrance. I'll just go with 9. Again, you can always play around with the values. The second adjustment that I love to add is brightness and contrast. You can just bring that brightness up, you know, make it look more bright and lively so that it sticks out more. You can also add more contrast, but I don't really add an insane amount because that will just look really weird. But yeah, as you can see, it adds a lot of difference. For example, I'm just going to group these real quick using Control G, and it makes a group. I'm just going to show you the before and after. This is after color correction. This was before. Comparing the two, you could see that before it just felt really bland, but then once you add more saturation and brightness, it just really makes everything look more lively. You can also put a little rectangle thing around here using the rectangle tool for a border. Like you could make a white stroked rectangle and set the blending mode to overlay, and it kind of makes this nice little border effect, which looks pretty nice. I'll just make it less intense though. I'll put it to like 60%. And what I'm gonna do is just select the main components of the thumbnail and just move them around a little bit because I could see that it's a bit unbalanced, so I'm just gonna move things until they look properly centered and all that. And there you go. I think I'm really happy with how this turned out. This is basically the thumbnail done. You can save it. You can save it as whatever. I'm just gonna name it Pegasus thumbnail and save. Make sure you save it as a PNG as well. And there you have it. We just learned how to use NPC Mod and how to make thumbnails out of it. Honestly, I'm not really sure why you would use NPC Mod over Replay Mod if you're making thumbnails for yourself, but if you want to make thumbnails for others, maybe even earn money from it, I don't know. It is way easier to use NPC Mod instead of trying to get a Replay Mod screenshot, especially when you're working with a skin that's not yours. Before I end the video, I just want to say thumbnail making takes a lot of practice because it also depends on your creative thinking, and usually that comes with looking at a lot of other video thumbnails and looking at your past thumbnails and seeing what you could do better and all of that stuff. So yeah, make sure to always practice and you'll get better and better each time. But yeah, that's basically it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope I explained things pretty well. Again, I have another thumbnail tutorial. If you didn't really quite understand something that I said in this tutorial, I might have explained it better in my other one. Regardless, thank you for watching. I love you guys. Happy thumbnail making, and I'll see you in the next video whenever that comes out. Bye!